51 tanks, one morning, the general never came. A trap set in daylight, an army walked into it. 6,500 casualties, 10 days, one battle. The kill chain. Today, we enter the decision that broke an army and rebuilt it. Here at the kill chain, we dissect the decisions that won or lost battles, using the same primary sources the commanders had. Before Kasserine, there was a picture that looked like competence. It was not. Flash forward. By February 22, Rommel had punched through the pass. The question this episode answers: how does an army lose 51 tanks and gain a doctrine? We hold that question for now. First, the board as it stood in January 1943. Operation Torch landed American troops in North Africa on November 8, 1942. American soldiers had never fought the Wehrmacht. Eisenhower knew this. Eisenhower selected Lloyd Fredendall to command II Corps, the American ground element. Fredendall came recommended by General Marshall himself. The confidence was not warranted. II Corps held a 30-mile front across Fade Pass and the eastern dorsal. The once armored division was split across that front, violating combined arms doctrine. Major General Orlando Ward, commanding once armored, warned Fredendall against the split. Fredendall ignored the warning. The once armored stayed dispersed. Allied intelligence chief Mockler Ferriman was reading Ultra intercepts throughout January. Ultra had broken the Enigma traffic. The intelligence was there. The reading was wrong. Mockler Ferriman assessed the main attack would come through Fondauk, in the north. Rommel was preparing to strike south through Fade, the gap in II Corps' line. January 30, Germans broke through Fade Pass. The warning signal Fredendall missed. What strikes us about this period? The Americans had 2 weeks of warning they did not use. Fredendall's personal code delayed every order reaching his forward commanders. The bunker, 70 miles behind the front, blasted from rock by his own engineers. What would you have done? You command 30 men across a 30-mile front. Intelligence is contradictory. Your reserve is minimal. Rommel is somewhere east of you. The 168th Infantry Regiment arrived days before combat. 450 replacements, some lacking rifles. Patton's son-in-law, Colonel John Waters, was stationed at Sidi Bou Zid. This becomes relevant. February 14, 1943, German reconnaissance struck. The quiet was ending. And then Rommel moved, not north, south, right through the gap Fredendall had left open. February 14-15, 1943. Lieutenant Colonel James Alger received his orders. 58 tanks, attack east towards Sidi Bou Zid, relieve the infantry caught there. German 88 anti-tank guns had been positioned in the hills the night before, waiting. What followed was not a battle. One eyewitness said, "It was murder. They rolled right into the muzzles." 51 of 58 tanks destroyed. 7 survivors reached American lines. Alger's force was gone in under 3 hours. There was no going back from this point. Fredendall received the report in his bunker. The 168th Infantry on Jebel Lesauda had no armored support now. They were isolated. 600 of 900 defenders of Jebel Lesauda were captured or killed. The Iowa National Guard. Among those captured at Sidi Bou Zid, Colonel John Waters, Patton's son-in-law. We should be clear. Zaloga's Osprey account and the DTIC after-action analysis agree on the ambush. They diverge on one point. Who bears final responsibility, Fredendall alone, or the Allied command system? Zaloga argues Fredendall was the singular failure. The DTIC analysis names 5 systemic causes. Our assessment, both are right. Fredendall enabled a system that was already fragile. Now from the German side, Rommel had not planned to command this attack. Von Arnim held the northern sector. Rommel assumed control mid-battle on February 19. At this point, Rommel had 3 options. Which would you have chosen? Option 1. Exploit the Sidi Bou Zid success, push for Tebessa and the Allied supply base. Option 2. A limited drive through Kasserine Pass, disrupt Allied logistics, then consolidate. Option 3. Halt, consolidate gains, wait for von Arnim's northern column to catch up. Rommel chose option 2. He also knew his fuel was already running short. February 19. The main German assault hit Kasserine Pass at 800. The American defenders at the pass, a mix of infantry, combat engineers, artillery crews. What the American after-action reports do not resolve. Who commanded the pass defense that morning? No surviving records tell us what orders passed between 800 and 1,100 at the pass entrance. Here is what we do know. The Italian Bersaglieri found the gap in the American left flank. The Bersaglieri exploited it, while German armor pinned the American center at the pass throat. By 1,600, the Americans were pulling back through the pass. The breakthrough was open. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Robinett was building something at Jebel el Hamra. Robinett organized Combat Command B into a coherent blocking force, the first ordered defense since the battle began. The sources agree on Robinett, but the war diary says his request for reinforcement was denied twice. The memoir of the denying officer says the request never reached him. Both accounts exist. February 20. German and Italian armor broke through at Jebel Chambai. The rear was now threatened. The 9th Infantry Division's artillery was 800 miles away in western Algeria. Eisenhower ordered it east. 800 miles, 4 days. The 9th Division artillery raced the clock to reach Thala. Rommel reached Thala on February 22. The 9th Division's guns were already in position. The massed artillery fire was decisive. Rommel's advance stalled for the first time since February 14. Rommel was already calculating. His supply line was 400 miles long. Fuel was critical. His diary entry from February 22. The tactical conduct of the enemy's defense had been first class. What Rommel did not write, but his operations officer confirmed. He expected total collapse. The Americans had recovered. That was not in the German plan. Rommel had 72 hours to decide what to do with a victory he could no longer exploit. February 24, 1943. Rommel ordered the withdrawal from Kasserine Pass. Not because he was defeated, because he was out of fuel and had no reserves to exploit the gap. The Axis forces suffered 2-0 casualties. The Americans 6,500, a 3-1 adverse kill ratio. 183 tanks destroyed. Artillery lost across 3 batteries. 10 days. The worst American defeat of the North Africa campaign. Eisenhower arrived at II Corps headquarters on February 23. What he found defined his memoir. His written assessment. The only time in the war a higher headquarters concerned itself more with its own safety than the battle. The engineers. Fredendall had pulled his combat engineers off the front line to build his personal shelter. Those engineers should have been constructing defensive positions at the pass. They were not. Ernie Pyle was in the theater. His dispatches shaped American public understanding of the defeat. Pyle wrote, "There is nothing wrong with the common American soldier. The deeper into a fight, the more of a fighting man he becomes." Pyle's assessment and Rommel's diary entry arrived at identical conclusions from opposing sides. The soldier had not failed. The command structure had failed the soldier. What strikes us in reviewing the primary sources? The after-action consensus emerged within 72 hours. Every senior commander's report named the same three failures: command isolation, intelligence misassessment, lack of mobile reserve. General Harold Alexander was appointed to impose unified Allied command. The British had been watching. Alexander's private assessment of American performance was damning. His official reports were more careful. Eisenhower fired Intelligence Chief Mockler Farraman immediately. Ultra had been there. The read had been wrong. His replacement, British Major General Kenneth Strong, a different analytical culture was incoming. The institutional response was faster than any previous American military failure had produced. On March 4, Patton arrived at II Corps. He wrote in his diary, "Rather a mess. I will make a go of it." Patton imposed discipline within 24 hours. Necktie rule, helmet discipline, forward command presence. Omar Bradley observed, "Each man was forcibly reminded that the pre-Kasserine days had ended." The soldiers had not changed. The command culture had changed. This distinction matters. March 16, Guettar, the German 10th Panzer Division attacked the American position. This time there was a coherent defense, anti-tank guns in depth, artillery pre-registered, reserve held back. The German attack stalled by mid-morning. The 10th Panzer withdrew, leaving 30 tanks on the field. 10 days after Kasserine, the same army, the first American tactical victory against Wehrmacht armor. The question we should ask, was Guettar the result of Patton's 10 days or of the 80 days since Torch? Our assessment, both. The Army had been accumulating experience since Torch. Patton unlocked it. Now all threads converge. The battle was over. The reckoning was beginning. And Fredendall still had his stars. Fredendall was not court-martialed. He was promoted. Major General sent home. He was promoted. That single word carries more weight than any court-martial verdict could. He was given command of a replacement training center in Tennessee. His men were still in Tunisia. Patton pressed the advance. By May 13, II Corps was approaching Tunis. May 13, 1943, 79 days after Kasserine. 250 zero-axis troops surrendered in Tunisia. The same army that had been rooted at Kasserine, the same officers, different command culture. The doctrine rewrite had already begun, in classrooms at Leavenworth and Fort Benning. Kasserine produced 5 specific doctrinal reforms. They reached Normandy 14 months later. Unified command structure, realistic coalition training, command presence at the front, contested logistics planning. And the 5th, institutional adaptability, the capacity to absorb a catastrophic defeat and answer it with doctrine. Unified command structure. Before Kasserine, American and British units operated on separate command chains. Alexander's unified command fixed this. From March 1943, all Allied ground forces answered one headquarters. Reform 2, realistic coalition training. American and British units had not trained together before Torch. Reform 3. Command presence forward. Fredendall's bunker became doctrine's anti-example. The field service regulations were updated in 1944. Command post placement now specified forward limits. Reform 4. Contested logistics planning. The 9th Division Artillery's 800-mile race revealed the gap. No reserve within striking distance of Kasserine. That architectural failure was solved before Normandy. The intelligence reform was perhaps the most consequential. Mockler-Ferriman's replacement changed the architecture. Strong insisted on dissenting assessments being presented to senior commanders. Ultra was no longer interpreted by one man. Here is the question the doctrine writers had to answer. Could the U.S. Army learn faster than it bled? By June 1944, all 5 reforms were in the Normandy planning process. The answer, it turned out, was yes. 300 Americans died, 30 wounded, 30 taken prisoner, 5 doctrinal reforms, and a general's promotion. What historiography agrees on, drawing on Zaloga and the DTIC analysis, Kasserine was avoidable. The intelligence was there. The warning was on record. The doctrinal response was institutional cowardice disguised as command authority. That is an editorial judgment. The evidence supports it. We are confident in stating it. What the sources do not resolve. Whether Fredendall understood at any point what he had done. His public statements after the war show no acknowledgement of personal responsibility. The sources are clear on this. March 4, 1943, Patton writes in his diary, "Rather a mess. I will make a go of it." 10 days, same soldiers who broke at Kasserine, different command culture. Guettar, they held against the German 10th Panzer, the first American tactical victory. Rommel had revised his diary entry. The American soldier had surprised him twice now. Patton did not get new soldiers. He got forward. He enforced standards. He was visible where Fredendall was not. The doctrine rewrite this disaster forced. It reached Normandy. It reached the Pacific. It reaches us today. The deeper lesson of Kasserine is not about Rommel's tactics. It is about what happens when institutions fail their soldiers. Fredendall's bunker was not the cause of Kasserine. It was the symbol of an institutional condition. An army that had not yet been tested could not know its own weaknesses. Tunisia was the test. The 5 doctrinal reforms produced by Kasserine represent the fastest institutional learning cycle in WWII, American military history. War on the Rocks, October 2025, argues the reforms at Kasserine were the template for American military adaptability doctrine. We find that argument credible. The evidence from the 1944 campaigns supports it. This is not established consensus. It is our reading. 79 days. From 500 American casualties at Kasserine to 250, 0 Axis prisoners in Tunisia. The tuition paid at Kasserine was paid in the currency only armies can pay. The lives of the soldiers they failed. What the full tactical breakdown in the description covers. The 5 doctrinal reforms with specific FM citations. The question we leave you with, was Fredendall an aberration, or was he the system producing the officer it had trained? The after-action reports suggest he was both. So does Eisenhower's memoir, written 15 years later. Full tactical breakdown is in the description. The 5 doctrinal reforms, the sources, the competing interpretations. Was this defeat inevitable, or the product of one man's failures compounding a fragile system? Tell us in the comments. Next at the kill chain, we enter another command failure with deeper consequences. The intelligence that was right and ignored. Subscribe. Next operation is already in the archive, and the archive never closes. Kasserine changed how America fights. That lesson cost 500 men. The kill chain. Every decision has a cost. We track the chain.